Support for This News is So Gay comes from the LGBTQ Plus Opportunity Fund of the Cleveland Foundation, leveraging philanthropy to empower LGBTQ plus communities. Welcome to This News is So Gay. I'm your host, Ken Schneck, editor of the Buckeye Flame, Ohio's LGBTQ plus newsroom. Thanks so much for joining us. I am so excited for this week's episode. We're going to put aside for the week our dialogues on conversion therapy and healthcare bans and cuts to crisis hotlines, because this week we are talking about queer culture. What actually is queer culture, and how do we know it when we see it? How are we doing with diverse representation right now in queer culture, and where do we need more than a bit of work? And of course, where is this week's roundtable finding queer joy? Joining us this week to answer those questions and so many more, Atlanta arts reporter and coordinator of Out on Film, Atlanta's LGBTQ plus film festival, Jim Farmer. Jim, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Interviewer, film journalist, and radio host, most especially for POC Culture, an entertainment website dedicated to celebrating and highlighting diversity in pop culture, Georgie Rodriguez. Georgie, so great to have you.
I'm so excited.
And fellow professor and James Beard-nominated writer who has penned pieces for the Los Angeles Times, the New York Times, Eater, Punch, and so many more, Rax Will. Rax, what a pleasure to have you here.
What's up?
Rax, I also learned that you can help me with accountability.
Oh my gosh. I have a writing group where I am a Dom and force people to write creatively outside of journalism. So you are all welcome. I'll give you the friends and family rate.
I love it. Oh, we have so much to talk about. Our LGBTQ plus reporters roundtable is now assembled. So let's dive in. But before we get into so much of the work that you three have done, I would love to get at your general thoughts on queer culture, because this is a bit of a different topic for us this week. What is queer culture, and how do you know it when you see it? Jim, you have been writing about queer culture, one could argue, Jim, for a few years now. Just a few, Jim.
Just a few.
Yeah. What is queer culture to you, and what draws you to it?
Oh, wow. That's such a loaded question. I think everybody has a different interpretation of culture. When I think about specifically queer culture, it's something it's really based around beliefs, experiences of a shared group, all about community, commonality, solidarity. I mean, culture can be, our card game with friends. Culture can be film, television, theater, arts, concert. I think what the commonality is that, queer culture is really supportive of each other. It challenges the mainstream, and it's something that, I think when I think about queer culture, I think about something that is specifically made for us and created for our community that we can respond to. And maybe mainstream culture doesn't quite jump on as rapidly as we did, but I think we know queer culture when we have it in front of us. And I've always been attracted to queer arts and culture and finding out, what my community is doing and sort of what brings us all together.
Georgie, how about for you? What is queer culture specifically in pop culture? Because that is a space where you just come alive. I love reading what you pen about pop culture. What's queer culture in pop culture for you?
Queer culture, kind of like Jim was saying, was when it's something made for us, by us. I feel like the biggest thing for me is when it's more than just like a funny side character stereotype, and they're actually a character. It's kind of things like that, and things that where they're like a character we can actually relate to, and that they're more than just like a one note.
Yeah. Rax, queer culture and hospitality. Before we even talk about that, I have to tell you, I am obsessed with saying James Beard nominated. I don't know if there is a James Beard nomination process for being the most present while watching Top Chef, but I feel that I would be James Beard nominated for that. So do you not just wake up in the morning and say, I'm totally James Beard nominated?
I like to throw it around, and it's so
Yes.
funny. My award, they send you a oversized, thick stock piece of paper, is on my refrigerator. So when people come over for the first time, they see it. When I'm in a fight with my beautiful partner, then I just kind of point to it and I'm like, well, no, I'm just kidding. But it's helpful to have it around the house.
Well, I actually know the answer to this because I've read your writing. Queer culture and hospitality, that's totally a thing, right?
Yeah, and I just want to respond to the question in general, which is that since culture, quotation marks, has been created, it has always been through the lens of straight, white, cisgender males. So when we say queer culture, it's not that this is some side thing, it's that everyone should be at the same table of culture. And many editors, decision makers are just suddenly realizing, oh, hey, we actually have to speak more than to just straight white people. We actually have to speak to everything that culture encompasses. And it's so embarrassing because queer people have always been at the forefront of making the best culture, making the best fashion, making the best movies, making the best books. But it's only recently that people are sort of catching up and being like, oh, you know what? Let's slap queer as a label onto culture and how we view it and make it this kind of other thing when in reality it is the very basis of the culture we experience as popular culture. There are so many intersections and ways that queerness influences the mainstream and dictates what it is. So I just wanted to start there. And then as far as queer hospitality, queer food, you know, I was also in this world where I thought that it was some other random aspect of popular culture. And so as a young queer, I marched into Karen Tongsen's office at USC and asked her, who is kind of a expert on queerness and culture, like about queer food. What is queer food? I'm trying to understand what queer food is. And she really gave me the basis for understanding the ways that it permeates everything and is in many ways dictating what food culture is today. And as a writer, I have been siloed into queer food. Many editors only know me for that reason. And, you know, every June we get our little pride package about queer food. And that's what they think they need to devote to the topic. That's what they think is a relevant way of presenting queer food. When in reality, there are queer chefs, tastemakers, people in the industry since the beginning of modern hospitality, making these decisions, influencing the ways that food comes to you on the table, your entire experience in the restaurant. And only now, really in, I want to say, the last 3 years, has it been a popular or conversationally appropriate topic to speak about.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, we have so much ground to cover. Well, as a professor of racial justice, that is what I teach. I am so excited to just talk about representation, and Rax absolutely opened the door to this. Representation in queer culture, which still continues to be a rough gig. And you three have done so well to write about the intersections between race and ethnicity and queer culture. Georgie, you've written so much for a publication with such a beautiful focus on people of color in culture. What does it mean for you to write for that platform?
So I got started in film journalism during a break from school. So as it's a little bit of a tangent, but I go to UC Irvine. But with chronic migraines, I had to withdraw on a medical leave for 5 years and see every doctor under the sun. It was while I was waiting for a procedure that my editor Ron was like, "Do you want to try writing Star Wars comic book reviews for me?" And it was just like everything to me at the time because everything was so bad. Like none of these treatments were working, you know? And I didn't think it was gonna really lead to anything more than comic reviews. I'm a big Star Wars nerd, so I was like, yes, sign me up. And also, you know, my parents were so supportive and they've always been supportive to allow me to pursue my goals and spend so much time on it, even if it's not necessarily something that's making me a ton of money, you know? But I've had so much support from POC culture and my parents, and it just means everything because so many things that I never thought would get to happen have been happening. It just means the world that just some some kid who like dropped out of college for a little bit gets to be in entertainment and like meet Superman, who was my gay awakening, by the way, as a teenager. Like it's everything to me.
Amazing. What representation have you seen lately, Georgie, that really resonated with you?
Yeah, one thing I've been stuck on is Ironheart. So, like you were asking about queer culture too. I think also we can have allies who bring us in to the conversation and like represent us also. I think that's also possible. And so like with Ironheart, this also goes to the people of color and queer culture at the same time because like growing up I was never really into Iron Man. Internet, please don't destroy me over this, but I never really cared about Tony Stark. Like in Endgame, yes, it was sad, but I didn't actually care that he was dead. It was because everyone else was sad, you know? But then with Ironheart, I see this girl and a group of people that I can actually resonate with and relate to. And
Yeah.
I'm actually really into the whole like Iron Man side of things now, which was only really possible because of this representation, because I could actually see myself in these people. And of course, the queer people that are in Ironheart too. So I think that also speaks to how powerful that representation and diversity could be because it can create a fan, at least for me, for something I just like had no interest in before June of this year.
I'm here for Riri. I'm here for that.
Love Riri, love that girl.
Rax, you wrote about this is one of my favorite pieces that you have penned, this next generation of lesbian bars. And I learned, which I did not know, that the actual phrase lesbian bar is actually quite fraught.
There is a history of lesbian bars being places for white cisgender lesbians, which is something that we need to acknowledge in queer hospitality, queer food. But I think now, with a little distance from this, the way that we're seeing these lesbian bars evolve is really beautiful, really intersectional, really multiracial. And I really enjoy going to them. I was just at Mother in San Francisco, which is a historic bar and it has a beautiful built out where all of the liquor is displayed and a wooden bar, and it's a big space. It's in San Francisco proper. And I just felt home when I was there. And it's hard to be walking throughout the world right now, as we are being visibly trans or POC or queer, and not feel the love reflected back from people you see on the street or in the grocery store or whatever. And I'm really honored and humbled to be able to step into these bars and feel all that warmth and true hospitality that should be reflected at every institution that serves a beer or a hot dog. And also, added bonus, when I walk into these spaces, I feel hot. I feel sexy. People are looking at me. I'm like, yes, look at me in that way in the space.
That's the way I want people to feel when they appear on This News Is So Gay. So that's wonderful. I am
Yes, I
totally
feel
here
it.
for that.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about film. First, Jim, how many years working with the Out on Film Festival?
Oh, wow. I'm wrapping up my 17th year.
Oh my gosh. I would imagine that you have seen the representation in the films that are being submitted, that you've seen that representation evolve over 17 years.
Definitely. When I first started doing this in 2008, we didn't get a lot of submissions of Out on Film. And over the years, as we've sort of, our profile has grown, and as we've grown and become Oscar qualifying, BAFTA qualifying, you know, the number of films that we get every year is just overwhelming. And it's a great problem to have. I see so much more depth now than I used to. I see more comedies and musicals, you know, horror. I mean, I see just so much deeper. And back when I was growing up, and a very, very long time ago, every time I would watch something on television or see a movie, the LGBTQ person had to die. You know, I think one of the first gay movies I saw was Cruising, you know, about serial killers. Woo! welcome to being gay. And then we moved into the AIDS era where, if you had HIV and AIDS, you had to die at the end. A lot of times women had tragic endings as well. Women had to commit suicide. So it's definitely an era where there is more queer joy. We can have happy endings, which is great. It's a good problem to have. But in terms of where we are in terms of representation, it still is an industry dominated by cisgender white men. That's, a lot of what film festivals get. We have a lot of work to do because we aren't seeing as many films. I mean, it's better now than it has been. It's getting better every year. But we still need to see more work from people of color and our transgender artists. And I sort of long for the time where we're getting more and more of that. But it's slowly happening, but it's certainly not where it needs to be right now.
Well, not all representation of queer culture, works. And Rax, we have to talk about the gender roles in service, and you've mentioned it, and your incredible piece, and everybody needs to go read this. When Sir and Ma'am Miss the Mark, Restaurants Rethink Gender's Role in Service. We love hearing journalists' take on putting a piece together. What was it like writing that one?
This piece came up for me because I had a changing identity and was coming into my own as a transgender person and was commonly experiencing being referred to as ladies at the restaurant, at the bar, along with, my trans friends who may not identify as ladies either. And this is a really common refrain in the hospitality industry. And some folks who I think get it really right are friends and family in Oakland. In their hospitality Bible that they give to all employees, they instruct everyone never to assume anything about the patron coming into their space. So that reflects all axioms which you can be misunderstood in a space, and one of those is gender. A really cool way that they reflect that is, when you're closing out, a lot of times people will have mobile point of sale systems where you just tap your card at the table and tip. And it can be really awkward when someone's like, hey, Margaret Atwood, this is your card. And it's like, oh, actually, I'm Mike and I'm trans, so that's my dead name on the credit card, and I would appreciate if you didn't call my name out. So they just have a really cool, seamless, comfortable, easygoing way of being like, hey, I have the red visa. Whose is that? No one notices. No one knows that they do this. No one's ever been pissed off about it. And it's just a really thoughtful way of making everyone feel welcome without being overbearing or awkward or overcompensating for making someone feel safe in a space. And I think that the purest form of hospitality that I enjoy is one that is not dictated to you, that you're not like, oh, I have to perform for the server or I have to really let them know how much I'm enjoying this meal. It's kind of where you are comfortable in the space. You might even just be left alone to enjoy the food. What a concept. And nobody's assuming anything about you.
I particularly enjoy the meme that says, I want to be the one that the server walks away and says, they're the best guest at that table. So that's clearly something that I need to work on right there.
I'm trying to make servers' lives easier. I'm trying to make, my experience of coming into a restaurant one that is not burdening the staff. And you might think, and there was some criticism of this piece, like, I'm a server and I don't have time to learn your pronouns. We're not asking you to learn our pronouns. We're asking you to simply not assume what our gender is. And that looks like when I come to the table, hey folks, hey everyone, what's up? How's everyone doing today? It's so easy. It doesn't require anything extra from you. And it might actually make your experience of moving through the world as a server, as a guest, a little more comfortable. And I think that's all we can ask
Heck
for.
yeah. Jim, I don't know if you know this, but not every film submitted to the Out on Film Festival makes it into the festival. I think that is something that you do know. Talk to us about representation in film that hasn't worked for you.
I think those are two different issues because we get well over 1,200 submissions a year, and we have room for about maybe 150 films. So there are plenty of really good films that I just have room for. I mean, I have to, obsess over things and try to squeeze in as much as possible. But there's always, dozens of films that I just maybe try to save for another time. I just can't get room for, and it's really, it's sad, but it's just the way it is. But I try to, I try to show as much as I can. Sometimes we have quarterly screenings. Off the bat, in terms of a recent project that I saw, film or TV or theater, I can't think of anything right now that absolutely didn't work. I will say that, as I mentioned earlier, the trope of always having people in our community die at the end,
Yeah.
that's something we're like, fuck this. We used to have a running gag, with women's films. It's like, because so many films that we would get, the woman has to die. It's like, we don't do that anymore. We don't need that. That's not who we are. So I'm not trying to say that we have a Pollyanna festival, but we try to eliminate, movies where someone has to die at the end or there's some sort of tragic ending. Because again, there's so much distress going on in the world right now.
Georgie, you are a verified Rotten Tomatoes critic. And let me tell you, I saw your post on this. Is it safe to say you were pretty darn excited when you were verified for that?
Yeah, I didn't think it was gonna happen, and I didn't really think people were gonna care that much. And then like everyone and their mom responded on my post. I was like, oh my God, let's go. It was so great. Yeah,
I
yeah, we're
love
happy
that.
about it.
I have to imagine that you've watched some queer representation that wasn't rated fresh. Give us an example or just generally of queer culture that didn't work out that well.
I really liked Bros personally. So, for example, like I'm non-binary, I'm like trans, and this came out before all of that. So at the time, I identified like as gay and everything, and it was like the representation that I needed at the time. But it didn't do as well commercially, right? And I think sometimes it has to do with something like marketing and stuff like that. Because like Bros is a really funny movie. I found it really, really funny. But the marketing didn't really do that side of it justice as much as focusing on how groundbreaking of gay movie. This is gay, right? Which isn't a bad thing, but I really think that it's really funny and also like marketing that might have gotten more seats into the theater. And with that, I also mean too, I do think that how well something does can also have to do with the climate that we're in. For example, like right now, people will see like in the Acolyte, right? There was two moms, two witches who created these twins, and it was such a big discourse online like, oh, this agenda, they're pushing this on my kids. I'm not going to watch it. And so I do think that stuff like that is more tied into the real world and the climate of how we see and how we treat queer people than like we might think it is. Or even the fact that like quick kisses, which are a big deal, but they're quick ones because they'll be cut out for other releases. And so I think it also has to do with how we treat queer people in our world so that the representation in our stories, how well that they can do also in the future.
Yeah. Rax.
I think in film, what I observe is that these representations of queer and especially trans people fail because there is no trans representation on these sets or in these productions. And it's not that we don't exist and we're not available to work. It's that we're not being hired or included in these conversations. And then people fail when it comes to nuanced or humorous representations of trans people. So we need to fix that.
Yeah, we have a new, I'm going to keep this general because I'll get in trouble and I'm not in the mood this week. We have a
Mhm.
new musical going up here in Northeast Ohio about telling the story of a trans individual. And yes, the individual playing the lead part is trans, but there are no trans people involved in the production of this musical. And let's just say we're hearing some feedback and it's not great. It's not great, folks. So yeah, in
Yeah.
all aspects, that's so critically important.
Yeah. And I think what people don't understand is that, so for example, with this play where there's only one trans person, this person could have issues with any number of things that an actor could have issue with in a production. But because they don't have someone else on their team or someone backing them up, their concerns won't be heard. And then it's going to be an artistic miss.
Right. And then the weight of expectations. With Bros, I forgot about how the entire hopes and dreams of the LGBTQ plus community for a few hours was on the release of Bros. And you're kind of like, okay, I laughed and had a good time. I didn't need it to be much more than that. But when you were reading the think pieces, it was like, oh no, this is whether or not LGBTQ plus rom-coms can work. Really, that feels like a lot.
And was it LGBTQ plus? Like, or was it G?
Right. And then there's that. Well, they had the boardroom racks where they had diverse representation in that one scene. So
That one scene.
if
Yeah,
you could
that one
please
scene.
remember that scene as being the
Mhm.
entire movie.
Mhm.
Georgie.
Say, I saw Bros on opening night twice in a row. I went once with by myself, and I was like, "This is so funny, I wanna go again." And the second time, it was a group of, like, I gotta say, like, 15 or 20 gay dudes. It was someone's birthday, and so I saw that with a packed theater of the target audience, and that I think that's what elevated it for me. It was so funny. But yeah, like, to your point, that's the other side of the coin, I think, is that there's so much weight on, like, this one thing has to encapsulate everything of what is it to be gay, to be queer, whatever, and then, like, it all rides on this one thing, and it's like, we should be able to also make movies or make anything that's just fine, it's just okay, it's just fun, it's just funny, and not have the entire thing riding on the success of this one thing, because that weight does not apply to non-marginalized groups, it doesn't apply to, like, straight white men who make movies that suck. It's like, "Oh, okay, they're gonna do another one now," and it's like, "What about us?"
There were a lot of straight white manpower behind that film, which I appreciate. Like, allyship is important, but it's still a failing of the industry that we had to get the straight white men to be like, it's okay to have a gay film.
Yeah. Look, Rax, I'm still on the part where you're ignoring the boardroom scene and
Mm-hmm.
pretending that the entire rest of the movie
Mm-hmm.
isn't. Yeah, no, it was problematic, but
Yeah.
I didn't need that movie to be more than it was. And so it was just very like the expectations. Ah, such good stuff. Well, again, friends, you are listening to This News is So Gay. I'm your host, Ken Schneck from the Buckeye Flame. Joining me this week, arts reporter Jim Farmer, pop culture journalist Georgie Rodriguez, and culture writer Rax Will. Well, I went through so much of your writing and picked three pieces I absolutely love. So let's bounce around a little bit. Georgie, you wrote about going to the Disney California Adventure Food and Wine Festival. And I will tell you, I did not know that I had a desire for a mango guava cocktail until I read your piece hyping the mango guava cocktail. It was amazing, but it strikes me that you had quite a gay experience there at the Disney California Adventure Food and Wine Festival.
I had the best time, I've been going to Disney since I was a little kid, so get to go to something like As Press was so much fun, and I gotta say, if that drink interested you, there's so many drinks all over the place, like, at the Star Wars bar, you'll probably have a blast trying out all of those. I wore a tiara, like, the whole time, and I brought one of my friends from school who was an international student from Japan and got to, like, see her first trip at Disneyland while we were just trying an insane amount of food. There were these, like, spicy wings that were too spicy for me, and I ate 3 of them, like, 3 orders of them. So, it was great, I had a blast.
Georgie, are you from California?
Yeah, I'm a Valley girl, born and raised.
Oh, I'm an Orange
Uh-huh.
County boy.
Oh, no way, let's go.
Let's go.
Okay, as a Jersey girl, I would just want to get in on this. So
Uh-huh.
I'm just saying. Rax, I am conservatively obsessed with Francis Anderson. Tell our listeners about Francis Anderson, who everyone should know about.
Francis Anderson is an iconic trans pool player who, in a time when women were not allowed to do a lot of things, was showing up at massive pool tournaments with huge amounts of prize money. I might need you to help me fact check that. When was it? It was the early 1900s. I have wrote this a
Yes.
while ago. She was rocking up to these pool tournaments and destroying the men who she was playing against. And she became a celebrity in the pool circuit and ostensibly was passing as a woman and living a happy life as a woman, doing exactly what she wanted to do, which was play pool, get a lot of money, travel around the country. Tragically, in death, newspapers outed her as being a trans woman. She had a difficult relationship with her family, understandably, because she was trans. And in death, she was not celebrated the way that she should have been. And I'm really honored to have told her story recently in a way that celebrates her life and legacy and the person that she wanted to be and is. And there was such a wonderful response from people who read this story. And however death works, however the universe works, I know that she could feel this energy from when this story came out and people celebrating her and her legacy. So it was really an honor to write that story.
It was so beautifully and compellingly written. I just
Oh,
am
thank you.
so humbled to be able to even have it on my screen. This one
Thank you.
sentence: Anderson swore her family would never hear from her again, and 6 weeks prior to her death, she returned to Newton for one last look at her hometown. And I just collapsed after that. So everyone has to check that out. It's over on them. It is a wonderful piece. And for folks wondering, hey, wasn't there another panelist named Jim Farmer? This is where we pull back the curtain and just say, folks, sometimes technical stuff happens, but the show must go on. I mean, we're talking about queer culture. Of course, the show must go on. So it is, of course, now time for Glitter Bomb. This is our weekly segment where our roundtable shares stories of queer joy. So let's set off a glitter bomb. Rax, where are you finding queer joy?
It's so hard to speak on this when we are living through kidnappings, genocide, so many horrible, terrible things. And yet, I am the happiest, knock on wood, healthiest I've ever been in my life. I have a wonderful group of friends. I have an amazing partner, Emma, who's also a writer. She's my Nora Ephron. We have a beautiful white dog who just celebrated his 2-year birthday. So I'm really struggling with this question and also the experience of moving through the world, because how do you reconcile being the happiest you've ever been in your life, wanting to move about the world that way, but then experiencing the intense sorrow and heartbreak and trauma that is being enacted in the United States and other places in the world where I have friends that are experiencing horrific, horrific things. I am trying to hold both. Like, is it not the most meaningful experience of being a human to experience great happiness and joy, but also have to hold at the same time the suffering of others? To boil it down, I think I am seeing queer joy in my life just being as friendly and kind and generous as possible when I see people on the street, when I see people struggling in my neighborhood, when there's people that I can help throw a few dollars to, housing my friends when they come to LA. We have a spare bedroom. I'm always loving to host people, but just trying to be as human as possible when we are facing inhumane conditions.
If you could just quickly send me the link at your leisure so that I can reserve the spare room, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's more of a DM slide kind of situation, but you're welcome anytime.
Georgie, where are you seeing queer joy?
It's like with everything going on right now, and even with like the continued attacks on like trans people and such, it can definitely be tough. especially as someone so, like, about a month ago, I actually started, like, my first dose of estrogen and, like, transitioning and taking it a step further.
Let's
Yeah, thank you.
go.
And then on the same day, there was that announcement that, like, Trump wanted to, like, institutionalize trans people or whatever, and I was like, "Great," it's just, like, an interesting first day. But a way that I've been finding joy has honestly been, like, Pinterest or, like, some, like, trans content creators. Like her at is Evangelized Doll on Instagram. And like her stuff makes me so happy just to see like a trans woman just like living her life and just being like a baddie and her best self.
Love it.
And really just a lot of like clothes. Pinterest. It's really a lot of Pinterest too, and just seeing a lot of like clothing inspo. So that's how I've been doing it.
I'm up on my Pinterest as well, Georgie. I have my fall 25 mood board for all the amazing structured jackets and layers I want to wear. So I feel you.
We're all going together to the Disney California Adventure Food and Wine Festival. I've already decided that. And finally, we want to hear what you all are working on. What's coming up next for you? Georgie, what are you working on?
The thing I'm working on right now, most often, is my radio show. So I have a radio show at KUCI, which is the radio station on campus. I'm on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. It's at 88.9 FM or at kuci.org. People can listen from anywhere in the world. And then I'm working on the podcast version, but I don't update it as often as I should.
Tell us the name of the show.
It's called Frames of Mind with Georgie. So I get to know
Oh,
the minds behind the frame in entertainment. Next week, I'm interviewing the voice actor for Blade and Marvel Rivals. And I'm doing that for POC Culture and my show also. And also cooking up interviews for POC as well.
Amazing. Rax, what's coming up for you?
this might be a good time to announce that I am retired from journalism.
What? But your pen.
Here's what I have to say. Journalism is no longer the industry of when I started. It's certainly not the industry of my parents. And what I've been experiencing as far as like intellectual property rights, AI, not to mention pay, because we really are not getting paid. Yes, we are we are struggling. It's not really worth the squeeze for me anymore to really overextend myself to get pieces out. So, when I started freelancing as a journalist after my MFA, I was doing it for the love of the game. I have a full-time job so that I can freelance because you cannot live alone on freelancing. And a lot of journalists cannot live alone on a salary from a newsroom either. So last year was kind of troubled by this conundrum. And what came to me was that I want to make art and my medium is writing. So why don't I just work on a book? So, this accountability group and also my writing group has been really instrumental in giving me the support and advice. And for about a year now, I've been working on a memoir about being a girl from 2012 to 2015. It has been extremely fulfilling to leave behind the expectations of the journalism industry and also publishing in general. Like, you're only as good as your last piece bullshit. Like, actually, I'm only good when I'm working on the art that I want to create without someone who doesn't know anything about me or trans or the politics that I'm involved in. So I felt like it would be a more fulfilling and rewarding artistic process to write a memoir and see that through. There's a famous David Lynch quote that's like, you die two deaths in a creative project if it isn't the way that you want it to be. It's like the first death is like when it comes out, and the second is like maybe realizing that it's not what you wanted it to be. So I'm trying to lower my deaths as far as journalism, working with editors who don't know anything about trans or what I'm about, and also the nonfiction proposal trap, which is like selling a book on proposal and then having an editor tell you what it should be. I am
Right.
writing the book that I want to write, and I hope that it finds a home someday. but already the joy and fulfillment that I've gotten from writing my story and having it be exactly how I want it to be is enough for me. That said, I am looking for an agent. So hit me up.
Well, we're going to talk offline because I would love to support you in that publishing process.
Oh my gosh, thank you. And that said, I'll come out of journalism retirement for the pre-publication blitz. You'll see some Rax Will pieces when the book comes out, but right now I am just in my bag with my memoir, and it's amazing.
Amazing. We are here for all of those projects and to support them. And sadly, that's all the time that we have for this week's episode. I want to thank our roundtable, Jim Farmer, who was here for the first half of the show, who's doing such incredible work. Thanks to you, Jim. Georgie Rodriguez, everyone wants to tune into your radio show, so we are going to get more listeners there. Thanks for all you're doing, Georgie.
I had a pleasure of being here today. I've interviewed so many people, but I've never been the one interviewed. It was weird. I loved it. I want to do it again.
That's going to be our new tagline. It was weird, but I loved it. And speaking of Rax Will, thank you so much for everything that you're doing. I am thrilled that though the medium may be changing and has changed, you are not putting down your pen. You are doing incredible work. Thank you.
Thank you. This was so fun, and I support y'all at This News Is So Gay. I hope that it continues in perpetuity forever because we need more stuff like this. Thank you.
From your lips, let's keep going. And our special thanks to Diane Anderson Minshall and Gaelica, the Society of LGBTQ Entertainment Critics, for helping to curate this week's panel. I'm Ken Schneck, editor of the Buckeye Flame, and if you liked this episode of This News Is So Gay, please share it with a friend. Subscribe so that you do not miss out on our next episode. Send an email on over to editor@thebuckeyeflame.com. That's me, and you can let us know your thoughts. And of course, rate and review us on your favorite podcast app. One listener just submitted this review, quote, "I have a queer child and want to be as supportive as I can. Your podcast has been really beneficial for me about current LGBTQ topics and governmental impacts. Thanks for what you're doing." End quote. Thank you for that, listener. You too can leave a review like that. It really does make a difference. In the meantime, read LGBTQ plus news, share the stories of LGBTQ plus reporters, and support the work of LGBTQ plus newsrooms. Until next week, friends.